Alright, here's another corny video by me on dividing polynomials. It shouldn't take that long. What I want you guys to do is remember how we used to do division. So say if I wanted to do, 19 divided by 5. The way we used to do long division is like this, right? So doing a problem like this, it was how many times is 5 going to 19? And you would say 3, and then 3 times 5 is 15. And then you subtract to get 4. And then this 4 right here is your remainder. So what we do with this 4 is you take the remainder, put it over the divisor. So basically when you do 19 divided by 5, you should get 3 4/5. That's how we usually did it. The acronym that I'll put here is something that we can actually use while we're doing this. Some of you probably remember this. Some of you probably don't. Basically, does McDonald's sell burgers? In other words, that means divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down. So those are the steps we usually follow when we're doing long division. Now, what I want to show you is that this 3 4/5 right here can also be written as 3 plus 4/5. That's what and means plus in mathematics. So that's how we did that. So from here, I can show you the division algorithm. Basically, what the division algorithm says is the dividend over the divisor is equal to the quotient plus the remainder over the divisor. So once we divide some number by another number, this is the setup that we should always get. And remember, if your remainder is equal to 0, then this whole thing is just going to be 0. But what I should show you is that if, in fact, we can make this simpler. If we multiply this whole thing by the divisor, then notice that these cancel out and those cancel, and that cancels out. So what we're left with is dividend equals quotient times divisor plus remainder. Just a simpler way to write it, but they're both important nonetheless. So let's actually go through the process to really solidify this before we actually get into the algebra. Think about the 873 divided by 14. If we did the long division process, it would go as follows. First off, we set it up. This right here being our dividend, and this being our divisor. So from here, we just go through the actual motions. First thing is, how many times does 14 go into 87? 6 times. And then after that, remember, does McDonald's sell burgers? So we did divide, which is 87 divided by 14. I like to say, how many times does 14 go into 87? We say 6 times. After that, the next thing we do is multiply. 6 times 14, we should get 84. Uh-oh, I'm going way too fast. After we did that step, we subtract. We subtract 87 and 84, we get 3, right? And then we bring down. We bring down the other 3. So once we go through all of the steps, we repeat them. We start with divide again. How many times does 14 go into 33? Twice. 2 times 14, 28. Subtract, you should get 5. Now, since there's nothing else to bring down, this is going to be our remainder. So since that's our remainder, we're going to take this and put it over our divisor. And once we did that, we should get an answer of, well, I didn't write the answer. I thought I did, but it's okay. We should get 62 and 5/14. Another way to write it is 62 plus 5/14. If, in fact, we're following the division algorithm. So we can actually do that using algebra. The same exact steps. That's how we're going to follow it. So we set it up being that this is our dividend and this is our divisor. Now, the good thing about this is that when we're doing the first step, the dividing step, all we're concerned about is the first terms right here. So you're concerned about just x cubed and x, not really worried about the second term when we're dividing. I like to say how many times is x going to x cubed. Another way you can look at it is the actual division, x cubed divided by x. And if you do x cubed divided by x, you're going to get x squared. That's dividing. Remember, once again, I'll write it again. Does McDonald's sell burgers? We did divide. The next step is to multiply. But when we're multiplying x squared by the whole divisor. So x squared times x minus 2 is going to give you x squared minus 2x. Well, I'm sorry, this should be a cubed right here. It's going to give you x cubed minus 2x squared. Actually, hold on one second, let me change. All right, I think that looks better now. So our next step, once we multiply and we get here, the next thing we're going to do is subtract. So we subtract here, this cancels. And now this is the part where we have to be careful, because when you're subtracting those, it's not going to be what you think. So that's negative 5x squared minus negative 2x squared is going to give you negative 3x squared. And then from there, after you do the subtract, you do the bring down, which is plus 4x. Then you repeat the steps all over again. So remember, does McDonald's sell burgers? We do the divide. How many times is x going to negative 3x squared? Or another way to actually look at it would be negative 3x squared over x. And from there, you'll get that it goes in negative 3x times. So negative 3x times x is, once again, if we do the multiplication, that's going to be 3x squared. Negative 3 times negative 2 is going to give us positive 6x. We do subtract again. That cancels. And we're left here, we're doing subtraction here, so we're going to get negative 2x here. And we bring down, and we repeat the process all over again. So how many times is x going to negative 2x? It goes in negative 2 times. Negative 2 times x minus 2 is going to be negative 2x plus 4. And we subtract one more time to get negative 6. Since there's nothing else to bring down, this right here is our remainder. And we take our remainder, put it over our divisor. So what's that, negative 6? So our final answer, remember from the division algorithm, that our final answer is going to be the quotient plus the remainder over divisor. So that means that our solution in this case is going to be this and plus this right here, which gives us x squared minus 3x minus 2 plus negative 6 over x minus 2. Let's do another one just so we can see. One thing to really look out for is when you actually need placeholders. Look at a problem like this, you can see that there's a term missing. And I'll show you what the trouble that it'll cause. If we try to do this problem right here, we're going to run into trouble the way. All right, let's go through the algorithm. Looking at my first terms, how many times is a going to 2a cubed? I'm going to say it goes into a squared times. But notice there's no number to put the a squared over. Remember here, notice how all of the terms line up. You have x squares with x squares. You have x's with x's and just regular numbers with regular numbers. It has to pretty much be the same exact way here. But the issue that we have is there's no a squared. So what we do is we put a placeholder. So really the term that's missing here is the a squared term. Now we all agree that in between there should be a 0a squared. Since there's nothing there, we're going to put a placeholder there. So when we rewrite it, it should look like that. Now we can do our process. So let's do the process now. Once again, does McDonald's sell? You don't have to write that every time. Sometimes I like to write it. We do our division first. How many times a going to 2a cubed? It goes in. It actually goes in 2a squared times. I'll write it. I don't care. It goes in 2a squared times. 2a squared times a plus 2 is going to give you 2a cubed plus 4a. From here, we're going to be subtracting. That should give you negative 4a squared. After you have that, you bring down, that's the plus a. So with that, you repeat the process all over again. How many times does a go into negative 4a squared? It goes in negative 4a times. Multiply back negative 4a times a plus 2. It's going to be negative 4a squared minus negative a. Now we're subtracting. Remember, so it's positive a minus negative 8a. You're going to get 9a. Then you bring down the 3. Do it one more time. How many times is a going to 9a? It goes in 9 times. 9 times a plus 2 is going to be 9a plus 18. You subtract one more time, you should get negative 21. And remember, we're taking the remainder, putting it over the divisor. So your final solution should be here. Now notice what I did here, how I just incorporated the minus into here. It's pretty much the same thing as plus negative. We just stuck a minus in there. So that's how we do those. Try this one on your own. Just pause the video, try this one on your own, see if you got it, and then compare your answer to mine. So go ahead and pause the video now. This is what I ended up with. All I did was I set up my dividend and divisor. How many times is x going to x squared? Goes in x times x is x squared. X times 2 is positive 2x. Subtracted, got negative 6x. That goes in negative 6 times. Negative 6 times x plus 2 is negative 6x minus 12. Subtract that, I get 15. I took this remainder, stuck it over my divisor. And to get this is my final answer. So once you get the hang of long division with polynomials, they're not that bad. So I want you guys to take this, and we'll probably do something on top of this in class. That's the end of this video.